Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and very good morning to all. Oops, sorry. Okay. Everybody can hear my voice, right?
Yes,
Okay.
clearly.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Okay, before we start, for those Muslim, it's good for us to start with Umul Kitab Al-Fatihah. Ya, kena berdoa. Okay, it's Saturday morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. So there are 45 participants right now. It's a good start. Okay, today is a final session of our tea gathering. My name is Jamalludin Harun. Together with us today is Dr. Narafendi. And Dr. Narafendi's session will be started around 11 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. So we have the next about 90 minutes to discuss about this topic, how to defend your proposal and thesis in Viva. Okay. After 2 years or after 3 years, or for some of you after 5 or 6 years, okay, so the final session of your study is the Viva session. And for those who already started for the first or second session, second semester, you are now focused on your proposal defense. Whether you are from master program or PhD program, you need to sit for your proposal defense. Okay, for the next 90 minutes, roughly, I will be sharing with you information about proposal defense as well as Viva session. Okay, before we start, I want to have a quick question related to where's my chat room. There's too many monitor, I cannot find. Okay, that. Okay, I already copy and paste the link in the chat room. For those who already have your handphone with you, try to scan the QR code so that you can go to the Padlet page. There's only one question. Is there any question that you want to ask or you want to know, okay, about proposal defense or about your Viva session that you want to know but you don't know who to ask, or you want to know more, so that after this we can go further details about it. Okay, so you can go to this Padlet and then you can see this Padlet session page. You just click the positive or the plus sign there and just take about 5 minutes to think about, is there any burning question that you would like to ask about proposal defense or Viva session, so that after this we will go through the question one by one, or we just go randomly. If there are no question, meaning that this session will be, we try to end in 30 minutes because everybody know everything. Okay, so just take times about 5 minutes, think about one question or two questions that you want to know about proposal defense or Viva session. Viva was here. 5 minutes while waiting for our friends to join us today's session. Okay, I'll share again the link and also the QR code. For those who just joined us, for the next 5 minutes, just spare about 1 or 2 minutes to try to think about one question that you want to ask about proposal defense or Viva session. Then from that, we continue our discussion after this. Okay, I can see that there are a few questions. We'll go through after this, yeah? Sometimes it's easy to find an answer, but it's quite hard to find a good question to ask your supervisor or your examiners. Eh? Okay. Any question? Okay, I can see there are a few questions already stated here. What is the famous question during proposal defense? Okay, I don't know. Can we say I'm not sure about the answer for the question asked by the examiner? Do we need to have our instrument ready for proposal defense? How to answer the Viva question that really do not know the answer? Okay. Okay, I can see that most of the question is focused on the proposal defense or Viva session itself, the session itself. Okay, so this Padlet will be open till the end of the session. I will go through it roughly after this. But before that, I just want to share with you the outline of the presentation. Okay, the light at the end of the thesis, can you see it here? Okay. If you can see the light, meaning that you are ready for your proposal defense or Viva session. I'm sure everybody can see the light here. Okay, it's over here. So meaning that everybody ready. But the question here is how ready you are. It can be this woman, this is it. Okay, roughly in the morning, wake up in the morning, I'm ready for the proposal of Viva defense. Okay. Or you can be this guy. You can see it's not gender bias, but it's the usually women tend to be more confident than men. Okay, but we are not discussing about that because it's gender we don't want to focus on the gender bias. But you can see that it's up to you. How prepared are you for your proposal defense or Viva? So before we go for the Viva of the proposal defense itself, the judgment day, I would like to share the whole process because based on my experience, not all students take serious about the process. You only focus on the proposal defense or Viva session the day, but not before or after. Sometimes you already complete all the thesis, but you still fail because you are not take serious about the correction. Sometimes you already complete your thesis, but you cannot go for Viva session because you are not alert with the pre-process, the notification, for example, the requirement, etc. So for this session, I would like to share with all of you the whole process from A to Z. At any time, if you have any question, just on your mic, unmute yourself, and you can ask any question because this is informal session. Today is Saturday. Okay, so everybody are allowed to talk. Okay, first I would like to share the concept, the format, the purpose of the exam itself. We call it the exam, the oral exam. Either it's a proposal or Viva. But it is a oral defense, oral examination. Okay, there are no way that you can present or you can defend using in a written format. You have to you have to defend your thesis or proposal orally. And then we go for the process, and then the preparation before the exam itself, and the results, and the correction. So this is the whole process. Okay, the purpose and the format of the exam itself. So this I will go briefly, because I'm sure everybody know or aware about what's the purpose of proposal defense or the purpose of Viva was saying. The purpose of proposal defense is to ensure that your plan, okay, for proposal, your plan is not the actual thesis yet, only your plan, the planning. For proposal defense, usually chapter 1, 2, and 3. It's good to you to have a complete chapter 1, 2, and 3, including the instrument, but it's not compulsory. Okay, it's not compulsory to have everything complete. For example, for instrument, if you don't have the actual instrument, you only have a draft idea, you only have the reference to be used in your instrumentation process, it's okay as long as you know what you plan to do, because proposal is planning. Okay, so when is the best time to present your proposal? I'm sure your supervisor already mentioned you during the first semester. For master research, it's advisable for you to present in your second semester. Either you are mixed mode or you are full research, it is advisable, okay, advisable for you to present your second semester or third semester if you cannot fulfill all the requirement during the second semester. Okay. For PhD, it is advisable for you to present in your third semester. If you can present in your second semester, that's excellent. But most of the time, student for PhD present in your third semester. Oops, sorry. And I'm sure last month, if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember the date, maybe 18 or 19 February, for all PhD and master student, starting next semester, I'm sure everybody already been informed by the faculty, starting next semester, it is mandatory. It's not optional anymore. Before this is optional and advisable. But starting next semester, everybody mandatory for master full research to present by fourth semester. Okay. For master, for master is for doctoral, for PhD a fourth semester, and for master student by third semester. Mandatory, meaning that whether your thesis or your proposal is complete or not, for master third semester you are mandatory to present. For PhD, fourth semester is mandatory for you to present, to defend your proposal. What happens if you are not ready? You need to present. If not, the faculty will automatically will give you TM, tidak memuaskan, or unsatisfactory results. Before this, it depends on supervisor. But now, fourth semester or third semester, if you are still not present your proposal, faculty will automatically give you unsatisfactory results. Okay. So we go for proposal defense and Viva session. And for Viva, I'm sure everybody know what is Viva. It's an oral defense, and it's from Latin, word of mouth, or sometimes with living voice, something like that. The meaning of Viva was saying. In other words, Viva Voce is an oral test. It focuses on discussion and giving you the opportunity to defend your thesis. Okay, you already spent 3 years, 4 years to write your thesis. So this is the opportunity to you to present, to share your finding, your idea, your justification with an expert other than your supervisor. And you need to remember, Viva Voce or your Viva session is not a knockout session or killing session. Okay, because sometimes people or students tend to, oh, matilah Viva session. It depends on the examiners. If you get a good examiner, then you're okay. If you get a killer examiner, then you are knocked out. No, it's not a killing or knockout session. Most of the time, the examiner main objective is to help you, to ascertain that you have written your own thesis, so that if you have and are ready to talk through how you completed your thesis. It's not other student thesis. It's not based on plagiarism process. So there are no need for you to panic. And sometimes you may enjoy the YYWC process because it's a scholar discussion. You present, you share, and then examiner asks you a question, give an idea to improve your thesis. So that's a good discussion to improve your final thesis. Yeah? Okay, the process. This is the process, the whole process starting when you register for your PhD or master till the graduation day. As you can see, there are 3 levels here. Okay, first phase, second phase, third phase. The first phase is for the first 3 or 2 semesters. You focus on chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3, and then you ask your supervisor permission whether you are qualified to present your proposal, to defend your proposal. So you need to fill a form, and then your supervisor will nominate 2 internal examiner usually from the same department, the same school, unless your research is something unique that that maybe we need to invite from other department or from other school. But most of the time from the same department, from the same school. That's the first phase. After you pass your proposal defense, then you start with your data collection, your finding, result discussion, and you end with YYYC session. Okay? Same thing happen, you need to fill a form, a notification of thesis submission. Your supervisor will nominate 3 internal examiners as well as 3 external examiners. But only 1 internal and 1 external will be invited for your YYYC session, unless you are staff. For staff, there will be 2 internal. After YYYC, this is not the end of the cycle. You need to do the correction. Okay, that's the thing I mentioned earlier. Sometimes your thesis is okay. You can defend your thesis. You can defend your proposal. But during the correction phase, you don't take serious, or you are too busy with your schoolwork, etc. You tend to take it's not a serious process. So sometimes you are not fulfill the requirement. For example, the faculty give you 3 months. You need more than 3 months, and then the date is already past the due date, and then you will automatically fail, even though you already passed your Viva session. Okay, so you need to take that into consideration. If you have problem, contact your supervisor beforehand. For example, let's say you got 3 months. After 1 month, there are problem with your, I'm not sure, any technical error or logistic error, or you back to your hometown and there's a problem with school, etc. You need to request extension. Okay. Okay, the process for thesis. Okay, for Viva session. For thesis, you need to remember, you need to inform your supervisor, because you need to remember your supervisor, not you the only student under his or her supervision. Maybe there will be 10 or 15 or maybe up to 16 students under your supervisor's supervision. So you need to inform your supervisor. If you plan to submit your thesis, let's say June, okay, 3 months before June, you need to fill a form, a notification for thesis submission. You have to inform your supervisor. Okay. The process all through GSMS, yeah? And you need to ready with your abstract. As I did mention earlier, your supervisor will nominate 3 examiners, 3 internal and 3 external. And most of the time, your supervisor will ask you about the examiners, whether you're okay or not with internal examiners, for example, or external examiners. Okay. Most of the time with internal examiner, because you know the internal examiner. For example, let's say I propose Dr. Nora Fendi as as one of my student examiner, but my student think Dr. Nora Fendi have problem with her or him. For example, okay, whether it's true or not, you have to inform your supervisor, because we are trying to reduce the conflict. Or let's say your supervisor nominate one professor from other university. The professor is your uncle, for example. You have to inform your supervisor, because it's a conflict of interest. So it's better to inform earlier so that we can change the examiner, not just simply go for the session and then suddenly at the end of the session, somebody know that it's your uncle, then you have to do your Viva session again, because conflict of interest. Okay, this only the process. Prepare 4 copies of thesis signed by supervisor. This is conventional. Okay, 4 copies signed by supervisor, compulsory. If the thesis is not signed by supervisor, the faculty will ask you or will contact supervisor whether the student is eligible or okay for the proposal or the Viva session. So it's good for you to make sure the supervisor already signed the thesis. But for this COVID-19 pandemic era, you don't have to submit 4 copies. You don't have to print. Everything is online. So it's good, right? It's you only have to produce a PDF format and submit to the faculty, 1 copy. Okay? The faculty will share in a Google Drive so that all examiners will get the same copy. Okay, what happened? For Viva session, after receive your thesis, it takes about 1 to 2 weeks for the faculty to send the thesis to examiner. Either it's for proposal defense or thesis Viva session. And examiner will be given 4 to 5 weeks. For UTM, usually 1 month. Okay. Let's say I receive thesis 18th of February. The due date for me to submit the report is 18th of March. But usually it takes longer than that. Okay. The faculty will give, let's say, extra time for 1 week. So maybe 20 something of March. But not more than 2 months. Okay. Usually 5 to 6 weeks is maximum. And for proposal, usually faculty will give 2 or 3 weeks. Usually 2 weeks. Okay, I just received 1 proposal last week. I need to submit the report next week. 2 weeks maximum. Okay. After receiving the report, it takes about 1 or 2 weeks to for faculty to set the Viva or the proposal defense date. And you will be informed by WhatsApp or email or telephone from the faculty. And requirement for thesis submission. Okay, this is also important, but because there are cases, I said cases, more than one case, student, especially senior student, that tend to forget about this requirement. You have to remember, if your intake before first semester 2016-2017, semester 1, you need to publish one paper, International Referee Journal. Okay? It's not index journal, referee journal. Referee meaning any journal. Okay, it's not index, it's not Scopus, it's not Web of Science. So any referee journal. Okay, this is for intake semester 1, 2016-2017. And for 2016 to 2017 onward, the requirement is quite different. And for those who register next semester, I hear that the SPS bring a proposal to change the requirement. Okay, just wait for next semester. Okay, but it's not for your condition. For all of you, this is the condition. For master, one paper, publication, either it's journal or conference or proceeding or book chapter. That is for master level, master by research. For Doctor of Philosophy, as you can see, PhD, at least one referee journal, okay, in a journal, or 2 index conference accepted for in Scopus, ERA, or Web of Science. Okay, just go for Scopus or Web of Science, because ERA is, it depends on the situation, but for most of the time, it's better for you to go for Scopus or Web of Science. And also, you need to remember this as well, the plagiarism check. Don't wait till the end of the semester. It's good for you when you complete your draft of your chapter. Ask your supervisor to give you an account, or ask your supervisor to check the turn-in plagiarism check-in. Because Senate University only allowed less than 20% similarity index. Sometimes there are cases that at the end of the semester, when the student want to submit the thesis, then she or he found out chapter 2, for example, more than 40%. Then it takes time to change, to rephrase, paraphrasing, and etc. So it waste of time. So it's good for you, don't wait till the end of the semester, till the end when you want to submit your thesis. It's better for you to check it as early as possible. Your supervisor can help you if you don't have an account. Okay, the process. Once you submit your thesis for Viva, if the faculty contact you to check the availability for your proposal or your Viva session defense, to check the date, okay, meaning that you already passed half of your thesis. Why? Okay, because you are not called for defense if you get an E grade for the examiners, or the examiners found that you are plagiarized. Okay, if let's say she found out, or he found out the thesis plagiarism from other university thesis, for example, they just inform the university, this is the copy of the original thesis, this is your thesis, more than 50% is almost the same, then it's automatically, there are committee to check about that case. Or if you get an E grade for the examiners, meaning that you are not called for your Viva session defense. If you got C or D, okay, the best thing is got A, B1 or B2. That's meaning you can defend your thesis, and it's up to the Viva session, either it's go for A, B1 or B2. But if you got C or D grade given by one of the examiner, how to know that you got C or D before the Viva session is, let's say you go to the Viva session, let's say in right now in COVID-19 pandemic era, you log into your WebEx session like right now, you can see your supervisor or supervisors, you can see the chairperson, one professor, you can see the assistant chairperson, a senior doctor, for example, senior lecturer, a young lecturer, and then you can see two examiners. Okay, your supervisor already informed you, okay, you have examiner Prof A from UKM, Prof B from USM, and I'm sure you will Google about your examiners to get roughly an idea about your examiners. But let's say suddenly in that WebEx session or in that Viva session room, there are another one person from the faculty. Either it's a dean, deputy dean, or your director. Meaning that it's not 100%, but most of the time, meaning that you already get C or D from one of the examiner. Okay? But don't worry, because sometimes maybe dean or deputy dean just randomly walk into the room to check whether the process is okay or not. But most of the time, if there are other person, let's say the dean, a deputy dean, or your director or your chair, school or chair, in the WebEx session room or in the room, Viva session room, meaning that most probably you got C or D. Why? Because they want to make sure the results is not biased, is not because of both examiner have or one of the examiner have problem with your supervisor. So they only want to check the process is thorough, the process is good enough. It's not because of any other reason. But don't worry about that. Just target for Viva session. Most of the time you will get B1 or B2. Okay, think positive. Okay, I already mentioned this. For most candidate, one internal, one external. If your staff, when I said staff, meaning you are in UTM, you are staff from UTM. Not because I use staff from UMP, for example, you will get two internal examiner. No. If your staff in UTM, okay, then you will have two internal examiner, one external examiner. And of course, your supervisor, your co-supervisor will be there in the Viva session room. In UTM, yes, we still have a supervisor in the same room. But certain university, for example, UTM, your supervisor is not there. Your supervisor is not allowed to join the session. They will need to be in the campus so that if anything happen, if the committee want to ask anything, the supervisor is there in campus. But in UTM, we are still allowed supervisor in the same room. But you need to remember, your supervisor only there to give you moral support or take picture of you during the proposal defense. Even though it's not allowed to take picture during the proposal defense, but most of the time, because that session is one in a lifetime, of course your supervisor want to take picture so that he or she can update your Facebook, okay? Or to say, okay, padan muka, okay, something like that. You are too stubborn to follow his or her advice. Something happened during the Viva session. Okay, just kidding. So you need to remember, your supervisor only give moral support. He or she cannot help you to answer any question. So you cannot have eye contact with your supervisor asking about, please help me with your eye contact. Okay, even the eye contact or orally, you cannot ask your supervisor to help you to answer. If the supervisor try to help you to answer the question, the chairperson are allowed to ask your supervisor to wait outside to the room. So please help your supervisor, please help him or her to keep quiet, to stay in the room just to give a moral support. But sometimes the chairperson will give an opportunity for your supervisor to answer your question. But that's not a good idea. It's not a good impact for your proposal defense or Viva session. Because if your supervisor are asked to answer your question on behalf of you, meaning that you are failed to defend your thesis. You cannot smile because, oh, I have a good supervisor. My supervisor helped me to answer 3 questions during my Viva session. It's not a good indicator. It's not a good effect for your proposal or Viva session, meaning that you are not, you cannot answer, you cannot defend your thesis. Okay, this is the main thing that I want to discuss. The first part is only a general information for those who are still not clear about the process, about the purpose. But here is the how to prepare for your proposal defense or Viva will say examination. The thing that, as I did mention earlier, the thing that you need to remember, the submission of a master or a PhD thesis is like a climbing to the top of the mountain. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort. You need to prepare. You need to plan. Undertake a sustained effort to reach the summit, to the top of the mountain. But you need to remember it is not the end of the journey because it's only the process of climbing. You need to go down after that, to do the correction, etc. So but you need to remember that handling in your thesis is a massive achievement because not everybody have a chance to submit thesis. You have a lot of friends. Till end of the semester 3, for example, quit their study. End of semester 6, for example, quit his or her study. So when you submit your thesis, meaning that it's a massive achievement. Okay, so take a break, take a short break, pat yourself on the back. Not everyone reach the top of the mountain. So congratulations. If you submit your proposal, congratulations to you. If you submit your thesis for Viva Defense, congratulations to you. But as I did mention, it's not the end of the journey. Sometimes it's a new beginning. If you cannot defend your thesis or proposal, you have to start from zero. Okay, if you have to do a data collection again, or if during your proposal defense your research objective and research question is not up to standard for PhD level or master level, for example, and your research focus or research area is not aligned with your discipline or area of study, for example, you in educational technology, but then examiners think that your proposal is more towards mathematics education. Only part of it is only technology. Then you need to rewrite the whole thesis, the whole proposal. So as I did mention earlier, it's not the end of the journey. Maybe it's a new beginning, but pray for you don't have to start from scratch again. Okay, so I just want to share a few general tips. There are a lot of tips. If you Google, if you discuss with your supervisor, there's a lot of tips and technique. But you cannot just follow all the tips because it depends on the situation. Because it's up to the environment. It depends on the examiner. Sometimes if, for example, your examiner is Professor A, everybody mentioned if your examiner is Professor A, focus on research method, for example, because he or she always ask about research method. Then you study, you prepare for research method. Then suddenly during the Viva session, Professor A think about something different. Okay, so it's what in Malay we call rezeki. Okay, it's based on the situation. It's based on a lot of things. You cannot just 100% study. Okay, a general tips: maintain your physical and mental fitness. Of course, okay. Even though it's cliche, of course you say okay, I will focus on my physical and mental fitness. But the reason this tip in the first position is you have to remember everything will depend on your fitness during the day, during the judgment day, during the your proposal defense or Viva versus session day. Okay, because you have to remember a strong mind and a powerful memory depends on strong physical health. You need to remember, you need to use a lot of mental you use a lot of your thinking skill. You need to have a strong mind, powerful memory to recall back the research that you already performed. So it depends on strong physical health. So you need to take to good health of yourself. Sleep well, eat healthy at least 2 weeks before the Viva session. Please make sure take a good uh, care of your health. Gather as many questions as possible with their answer. Okay, this of course is a general tips given by your supervisor. Okay, or given by your friends that already passed the proposal session or the Viva session. Because you need to remember, one of the best way to win any discussion or debate, let's say you have to debate with your examiners, let's say the examiner argue with your method, with or your framework, you need to debate, you need to defend. Okay, so the best way to win a discussion is you are ready with the answer to any possible question. You need to visualize what the examiner will ask about your chapter 1, about your theoretical framework, about your research objective, about your method. You need to think about it. You need to visualize. You need to study and gather as many questions as possible with the answer. Okay? Don't just think about the question without the answer. Because during the Viva session, oh, I remember I keep asking me this question, but still I don't prepare the answer. So that's the problem. You need to prepare the answer as well. And the third thing is stay up to date with the latest development in your field. This is also important, because most of the time your proposal or your thesis for master or PhD, it takes more than 1 year. For master, for example, it's up to 2 years. For PhD, maybe up to 3, 4 or 5 years. So your idea of your thesis written in your thesis sometimes need to be updated. Okay, because knowing what is going on in your field can make a big difference. There may be a question which is not clearly addressed in your thesis, for example. For example, you are focused on mobile learning with peer instruction, and you use your theoretical framework is based on certain principle or certain strategy. But then after 4 years, maybe the strategy is not worth. Maybe the strategy is there is something new, but you don't have time to change it. You just go with the flow. But it's good for you to know the situation, so that if your examiner asks you, do you know that we have another technology or we have another principle outcome based on a previous research that saying that it's good for you to use this strategy or this criteria. So you need to know that. Even though your thesis is not focused on that strategy or technology or pedagogy, but at least you know. so that you can give a feedback to your examiners. And you need to remember this, the keyword here. You are the master of your proposal or thesis. You spend 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. Try to stop. It's good for you to stop at the end of 4th year, for example. But sometimes it takes longer than that, for 5 years, for example. You need to remember you are the master of your thesis. Okay. You have done your research and you are the person who understands the results. You are the person who understands the outcome better than any person in that room. Even though your examiner is an expert in that field, but in general, but not in the context of your thesis, of your proposal. So be confident, have faith in yourself, assure that yourself that you are an expert and the most knowledgeable person in that room in your thesis area, but don't be too defensive. Okay, don't be too ego with your research area of research, your writing. It's okay to not, and you need to remember also, even though a master of your thesis, it's okay not to know everything. Okay, but you should be high on confidence for whatever you know. You know the strategy, you're confident with the strategy, you defend the strategy. But in terms of the technology, you think it's okay about the technology, but maybe there are another technology that's suitable. It's okay not to know everything. It's okay to say to your examiner, I'm not aware of that, sorry for that, something like that. Okay, we don't have a problem for you to tell the truth about the thing that you don't know. But if you know, feel confident and defend it. Know who are you going to face. This is, of course, as I did mention earlier, when your supervisor inform you who's the examiner, it's good for you to go through their work. Okay, your examiner is an expert in the field. There are great chances that they will be knowing something that you don't know. Of course, they are expert in the field. Okay, so check update. If you have time, try to spend some time to check updates on their work, to see their recent publication, contribution, so that you will know the area of interest. Their area of interest. Okay, so before orang kata tak kenal maka tak cinta. Okay, so you need at least to know a brief overview about your examiner, their interest, their contribution, their publication. Okay, I just focus on the last one. Take feedback and comment positively. Oops. You have to remember during the Viva session, sometimes it's a very tiring process. Sometimes you feel lost. Sometimes the question keep coming without stop. Okay, one examiner asks you about something, and then second examiner asks you about another thing from time to time, non-stop sometimes. So if you need a break, you just inform the chairperson, can we have a break, for example? Okay, for 5 minutes, I want to go to the toilet, I want to take a deep breath, for example. It's okay to ask to do so. But try to take feedback and comment positively, because you have to remember, comment, suggestion, and feedback on those points from the questioning from the professor will be useful for your final writing. Okay, this is the what we call the final door before you print your thesis. Okay, before you print your thesis for final printing for the hard copy. So this is the final gate. So the examiner always want to make sure that everything goes well. So take them positively and ensure that yourself to be ready to work further on them. Okay, in the correction phase. Okay.
Excuse me, doctor.
Yeah.
Excuse me, doctor. How long
Okay.
is this? I have a question here. How long is the duration for the whole Viva session?
Okay.
How
How
long?
long? Okay. I will come to that later because I have how long is very subjective. Okay. For PhD, okay, for PhD sometime it takes, I have a slide on that, but before that, let me check. Where is it? Let me check that slide first. Okay, here is it. Okay, what will happen during my Viva session? Usually, when you enter the Viva session room or in a WebEx session, you will be asked to leave the room for a while, for 10 to 15 minutes. In a WebEx session, the committee member, the technical person will ask you to wait in the lobby by yourself, okay, for 10 to 15 minutes because there are discussion among examiners and chairperson. This is for Viva. For proposal defense, it depends. Sometimes there will be no discussion. The chairperson will ask you straight to the presentation session. But sometimes it depends on this, if the results is quite different. For example, one examiner for proposal, one examiner give you is not up to PhD level, for example. You need to present, you need to defend your proposal again, for example. And one examiner give you okay. So there will be a discussion, a short discussion on what the different, why there is a difference in their evaluation. But for Viva session, it is compulsory. Most of the time, 100%, there will be one session that the chairperson and examiner will discuss about your results. 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. And then for thesis presentation, it's up to the chairperson. Sometimes he or she only allow you 15 minutes. But most of the time, between 20 to 25 minutes. So it depends on the chairperson. The chairperson will inform you, okay, Young, you are given 25 minutes to present your thesis. So 25 minutes. So it depends on the situation. Yeah? And discussion and thesis defense. It can be 2 hours. It can be up to 4 hours. Previously, last few years, okay, there are sessions start at 9 o'clock in the morning, stop at 1 o'clock, and continue after Zoho, 2:30. Okay, there's sessions, something like that. But now, the faculty and also SPS try to avoid that. Okay, there are what we call a guideline. Try to complete everything. There are no to be continued. Okay, 1 o'clock there will be no to be continued after Zoho after 2 o'clock. We try to complete everything 9 to 1, for example. Okay, a short Viva, let's say your Viva session up to 4 hours. Start 9 o'clock, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock, for example. Up to 4 to 5 hours. Okay? It doesn't mean that what we call a long Viva does not necessarily mean that you are struggling to demonstrate the quality of your research. Let's say somebody asks you, Bong Yilin, for example. Yilin, how long for your proposal Viva session? and you say, oh, I present and defend my thesis 5 hours, and everybody talk about it. Oh, Yilim defends 5 hours. What happened? Something like that. It's not, if you present a long Viva does not necessarily mean that you are struggling to demonstrate the quality of your research. It could just mean that your examiners are thoroughly interested in what you have to say. Sometimes a complicated thesis need a longer time to discuss, meaning that your examiner put interest in your writing. Because sometimes after 4 hours, your result is B1 because they are fell in love with your research. They what you call don't think there's a problem after the defense session. And you also need to remember, a short Viva does not mean you are good to go. If somebody asks you, how long your proposal thesis defense or your Viva versus session? Oh, I only take 30 minutes to defend my thesis. Oh, how long the correction? 1 year. Okay. You have to remember, B1, it takes about 3 months to do the correction. But let's say you can defend your thesis in 30 minutes, but they give you 1 year to do the correction, meaning that your thesis have a problem. That's why they stop earlier than what after 30 minutes discussion. Okay, we have to stop because the theoretical framework, the foundation of your research, the base is wrong. So you will only stop at chapter 1. So it's only about 30 minutes. So 4 hours or 30 minutes or 1 hour is not the thing that you need to consider to what we call to justify whether the thesis is good or not. And after that, it takes about 10 minutes for the chairperson to present you the results. Okay, after you go to the lobby, you are sent to the lobby again, and then the chairperson will ask you to come and tell you the result, whether it's B1, B2, C, something like that. Okay, so I just go back to what you need to do for your presentation. This is the outline for a standard PowerPoint presentation for Viva. For proposal, of course, you only need to present up to chapter 3, but you need to remember the important thing that you need to present is about your introduction, and sometimes introduction combine or merge with your background and research problem. And during the discussion about research problem, try to show the gap, try to justify why you go for that area of interest, and then you go for research objective and research question, theoretical and conceptual framework. That's it for your chapter 1. There are certain sometimes you don't need to present operational definition. Sometimes there are students present literature review. If you have a good literature review and you want to share, try to get the good info and combine it with background of the problem. You don't have to present your chapter 2. From my point of view, most of the time you don't have to present your chapter 2 because we only want to know. This is for Viva. Same thing with a proposal defense. For chapter 2, you only give an overview, the topic, because during proposal defense, you need to focus on chapter 1 and chapter 3. Chapter 2, because it's a keep ongoing process. Your examiner will only tell you or will inform you, oh, okay, you need to update this, you need to do the critical or meta-analysis on this area. I can see that you have a critical analysis, but that is not enough, something like that. As long as you have an overview about chapter 2, that's enough. But chapter 1 and chapter 3 is really important in your proposal defense. Most of the time, 50% of the proposal defense focus on chapter 1. Why you want to focus on that research problem? Why? The question on why is really important. Then they will go to your research problem, research question and research objective. whether it's worth for PhD, whether it's enough for master level for research. And then they will go for theoretical and conceptual framework. Why? The question on why this theory, why this model, how you align with the theoretical framework the theory that you focus on theoretical framework, and how from theoretical framework you come up with this concept framework. So from my point of view, proposal defense focus on chapter 1. Okay, you need to justify everything. For chapter 3, as long as you can show the connection, the alignment between chapter 1 and chapter 3 is good enough. For example, this is my research question number 1. This is the instrument that I tend to use to answer research question 1. And this is how I analyze the instrument to answer research question 1. For research question number 2, I use 2 research instruments. Okay, interview and data logging, for example. So I have to justify why, and then I have to show how I triangulate that data. Okay, that's the important about during your proposal defense. And let's say you have a sorry let's say you have a one research question, the final research question, because right now most of students, the final research question is something related to to design or to develop a framework or model, for example. It's good to have that kind of research question, but sometimes during your first or second semester, you are not clear on how to prepare or how to produce the model or the framework, because you are still not go through all the process, all the detail about the what we call the process, whether you want to use smart PLS, whether you want to structure equation modeling, whether you want to use path analysis, or you just want to triangulate from research question 1, 2, 3, and 4. But you need to have at least a brief idea. If your examiner asks you about it, even though it's not clear, but you already have the overall idea, the examiner will accept it as long you can explain it. But let's say you want to use smart PLS, for example, or you want to use structure equation modeling, but the criteria is you cannot fulfill the criteria, for example, meaning that it's a wrong instrument, it's a wrong data analysis, then you have a problem. Meaning that even though it's not detailed, but you still have to know whether it's what we call, it's okay to perform that kind of data analysis. Because the proposal depends, is you propose something. And that's the good thing about during the proposal defense, you have an idea. Because even though it's not detailed, maybe your examiner will introduce you, or you will ask you to go in certain areas, so you get an idea. Why don't you go to this? Why don't you read this article? Why don't you use this strategy? So you get an idea based on the examiner's suggestion. So this is the process for chapter 1, and then you focus on the method. And my suggestion for methodology, you don't have to present word by word. It's good for you to summarize everything and put in a infographic, or in a what we call infographic format, or a flow chart. So in one page, in one flow chart, or in one infographic, you can explain everything. Okay, so you save lots of time. You only have one infographic. Okay, this is for research question, this is the instrument, this is the data analysis. And for research question number 1, the population is this, based on stratified random sampling. This is the minimum sample requirement. This is the proposed sample, for example. You put in a chart format, infographic format, then you just present it. So most examiner will love that kind of presentation. So you don't have to present, oh, my sampling is just in verbally format. And during the presentation, this is not what we call a good model. This is only a framework. This is only a guideline. Okay. If let's say you are given 20 or 30 minutes presentation, focus on the background of the problem. After you introduce yourself, it's good for you to introduce yourself briefly. My name is Jamalludin Harun. I'm a teacher teaching it so that the examiner know, oh, you are a teacher. Oh, you are a tutor. You are instructor. You are freelancer. As so that they can get put your okay your research interest with your academic life, with your personal life, with your professional life. So briefly introduce yourself, not more than 1 minute. Okay, don't read your resume or give your CV. Nobody want to know detail about you. Not academic and professional life. Don't introduce, oh, I'm already married, I have 3 children. It's not a personal life, just academic or professional life. Okay, then you continue with your background of the problem. This is the most important part during proposal defense. Okay, during Viva, sometimes it's good for you to start back with the background of the problem, even though sometimes you need to focus on the finding and discussion for your Viva session. But for me, it's good for you to justify first why you do this research. What is the problem? Why so? The justification, the research gap. Because during proposal, you already defend it. But sometimes during Viva, your examiner is different than your proposal. So you need to make sure you are the same track, the same line with your examiners. And then focus on the research objective and research question. And sometimes you don't need to read your objective and research question. Just put in the slide and just inform to the examiner, okay, I have 5 research objective and this is the another 6 research question that align with the research objective. And then just summarize everything if you have time. Summarize meaning you don't have to read word by word. My first research objective is to identify blah blah blah. You don't have to read because your examiner already have your thesis, already read your thesis. Summarize meaning, okay, first I want to check this and then based on research question number 2 and 3, I triangulate and then I interview student to get more data and then the final research question, I will try to design a framework, something like that in a general, in a summarize, try to summarize everything. And then of course, theoretical and conceptual framework, same thing with research objective and research question. You don't have to explain in detail. Just show the image, the graphical format of your conceptual framework and briefly give an overview. There are 3 theories that as a foundation of my research: problem-based learning, flipped learning, and 3 theory is too much, 2 theory, something like that. Because during Viva session, usually we want to know more about your finding and discussion. Okay, after you justify everything, spend more time for your finding and discussion. And at the end, you give a significance of your study or contribution or recommendation. Okay, I think this one is already 6:20. The time is okay. Let me check whether it's important or not. Okay. Okay, what can I do to prepare for my Viva or proposal defense? The first keyword is you need to know your thesis inside out, everything. Okay, because it's not a memory test. You don't have to memorize it, but at least when somebody asks you, examiner asks you, you know that you already have in your thesis. Not just simply let's say examiner asks you something and you ask the examiner, hey, got in my thesis, okay, something like that. You need to know, okay, yes, I wrote that, I followed that guideline, but let me check, I can't remember which page, or something like that. At least you know, okay, inside and outside of your thesis. That's why during your proposal and thesis defense, you need to have one copy of your thesis or proposal. Exactly the same copy that you submit to the faculty and given and distribute to your examiners. That's the key point. Maybe you update your thesis, but don't use the update version during the Viva session. You need to have a same version with your examiners, because they will refer to the thesis that you already submit. Okay, for example, Ahmad, please go to page 7, and then they go to page 7, but yours is not 7 anymore. Yours is already page 9. So it's give lots of headache during the examiners during the Viva or proposal defense session. And then you have to anticipate the Viva session. It's good for you to anticipate the Viva the question. But this is what we call, it's nothing to get too concerned about, because as I did mention earlier, okay, it depends a lot of things. Sometimes this examiner love to ask about method, but sometimes during your Viva session, he or she will not ask anything about method. He want to know about your design. So it depends on the situation that you need to prepare everything. Okay. And it can be really helpful to you to practice your answer beforehand. That's why it's good for you to have a mock-up Viva session. What mock-up Viva session? Before the actual Viva session, try to spend some time with your friends and also, of course, as your supervisor. Try to present in 20 minutes so that your supervisor have a chance to check your PowerPoint presentation, have a chance to give comment on your the way you present. Because even though it's a general idea, for example, if you're already master or PhD student, sometimes we assume that you know what or how to present. But sometimes without a mock-up session, then the supervisor you have a problem, because your your supervisor benchmarking of a good presentation maybe is not aligned with your benchmarking by yourself. Okay, this is what we call a general tips. If you want to make sure during the proposal defense you don't have a problem to recall about your thesis, about your proposal, it's good for you before the day you have to reread your thesis carefully. The whole thesis. Okay, chapter 1 up to chapter 5 or chapter 6. Because you have to remember this thesis you already read, maybe it takes 4 years. Okay, sometimes you forgot about you focus on chapter 4 and 5 before the Viva session to complete the thesis. Then maybe you forgot about chapter 1, chapter 2, or chapter 3. So it's good for you to go through your thesis. If you find any mistake, don't panic, but make a note of it. And sometimes just keep quiet during the Viva session. If the mistake is minor, okay, just keep quiet, but you already aware about it. If your examiner asks you, okay, Siti, do you aware that this theory, okay, you aware about the mistake, you know that. So you just inform, yeah, yes, Prof, I aware that I already make changes to my final thesis, sorry for that. But don't, before your Viva session, you just inform, okay, before I start my presentation, I just want to let you know there are mistakes at page 1, this, at page 7, this is the problem. Don't open the door, okay? Just close the door, don't inform everything if the mistake is minor. But if the mistake is major, for example, the sampling technique is wrong, Okay, you can inform during the presentation. Okay, I've already make adjustment previously, or if your research question, for example, this is the version that I submit, but this is the thing that I do a change. It's good for you to inform in your presentation for major only, but for minor, just keep quiet. But you aware, keep that in your notes. And I always ask my student, practice telling a story of your research in 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, the whole thesis. That's why we have 3 minute, 3 minute thesis. 3 minute thesis event. You try to summarize everything in 3 to 5 minutes. For example, for you, it's not 3 minute thesis, but if you can summarize everything in 2 or 3 minutes, it's good. But before 2 or 3 minutes, try to summarize in 10 minutes. Try to summarize in 5 minutes. Try to explain to your friends, even though your friend don't want to hear. Okay? Just try to explain. Just tell the story. Oh, my research is about this, 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 something like that. And then you go in detail. Practice telling a story for each chapter. For the first part, the whole thesis. But then for chapter 1, okay, my chapter 1, try to summarize everything in 5 minutes. If you can summarize everything in 3 to 5 minutes, meaning that you already find out what is the gist, what is the important elements of every single chapter of your thesis. Okay, it's good to do something like that before your Viva session. Okay. Okay, the keyword during a Viva session, think about your panel of examiners. What I mean by think about your panel of examiners, remember that they already spent times to read your thesis. They are given almost a month to read your thesis, but usually they will not take a month, 1 month to the whole 1 month to read your thesis. Maybe they take about 2 or 3 days before the deadline to submit the report. Okay, or maybe 2 or 3 hours before the deadline to submit the report. But they already went through your thesis, so you don't have to teach them. You don't have to explain everything in detail. Okay, especially the research methodology session. You don't have to explain everything. They already know why. So, sorry. So you need to decide what is important in the thesis. As I did mention earlier, if you already try to summarize in 5 minutes, meaning that that's 5 minutes is the most important part in your thesis, bring that to your proposal defense. Bring that to your proposal slide. Okay. And you also need to remember, don't rush through the presentation. Sometimes, if you are nervous, you want this to end as soon as possible. Okay? Your instinct will tell you that if you go through the presentation faster, you will be relieved from the stress sooner. Okay? That will trigger your anxiety level. So you will speak too fast, or you even skip some part of it. As you plan. You plan to present this and then you suddenly skip it. Okay, don't do that. Remember, deep, long breath. Okay, take your time. Okay, don't let don't be too stressful during the Viva session. Because we can see, for example, I have one session. Okay, every time the examiner asks the student, we can feel the student, the stress level of the student. For example, the body language, the eye contact, the way she or he breathe. For example, something like that. So you need to try to make sure. Okay, I only can speak 1 hour. After 1 hour, I have lost my. Sorry for that. Where is it? Okay, how to handle Viva question politely. First, you need to remember, listen to the entire question from internal or external examiner, or during proposal defense, listen to the entire question. Don't don't jump to conclusion, or don't cut the question from examiner. Let them deliver, or let the entire question presented to you, and then only answer the question. And before you answer the question, pause first. Pause about 2 or 3 seconds. Allow yourself to time to value the question. Okay? Don't, oh, this question is really easy. Why you use AD model? Something like, and then you want to jump to the conclusion. Take times. Take a deep breath, 2 or 3 seconds, and then only you answer. That's how to answer politely, so that the examiner know you think before you answer the question, not just jump to conclusion. Oh, this question is really easy. You are professor, but you ask a simple question, and then after that you will face a lot of other complex question. uh, when appropriate, give credits to the person for asking the question. For example, uh, thank you very much, Prof, for the question. That was a great question. I tried to answer, something like that. But don't use it for every single question. Okay? For for a question that you think is appropriate, but don't every single question. For example, why you choose Form 4 as your respondent? Oh, that is an interesting question. Okay. Nothing interesting about your sample. Okay, so use it wisely, so that your examiner know you are. It's not what we call try to, what the keyword. Try to bodate your examiner. Let's say you are not familiar. It's okay for you to say, sorry sir, sorry professor, sorry prof, I'm not familiar with that researcher work, but I'm it's good for me. After this, I will try to look after the article. Thank you very much for your suggestion, something like that. And before you stop, it's good also for you to bridge to the next question, so that the examiner know you already answered the whole question. For example, you maybe can say, does that answer your question, Prof? Is that the kind of information you are looking for? Something like that. So every time you end the question, you ask something like that, so that the examiner, okay, yeah, that's the answer that I want to know. So that we will go to the next question. Because sometimes student answer the question, and then the examiner don't know that the student already end the question, the session, and then everybody waiting, especially during the WebEx session. Okay, because sometimes we lost connection, we lost your audio, we lost your voice, and then everybody waiting for something. You're waiting for the examiner to ask the next question. The examiner asks you to complete your sentence, something like that. Okay, this one you can read after this. That's the thing I mentioned to you. Remain quiet after you have answered the question to allow examiners to think. Okay, sometimes. Remain quiet. After you answer the question, stop for a while, so that the examiner will think, oh, okay, something like that. Don't talk or don't speak non-stop. Okay, be ready to admit if you don't know the answer to a question. Okay, sometimes you tend to try to convince your examiner that you know everything, but sometimes it's good for you to admit that you don't know, but use it wisely. Don't, for every single question you said, to show that you are sincere with your the session. I'm not quite sure, Prof. I don't know, Prof. Thank you very much, Prof. Something like that. You have to be use that wisely. You need to convince the examiners, but at the same time try to admit if you don't know. Okay, the thing that you have try to avoid, do not give a general answer. Okay, for example, this happened in every study. Okay, that is a general answer. You need to justify based on your research. Do not blame your data. Okay, sometimes, because I only can collect data from one class, for example. I cannot go to another class because I don't blame your process, don't blame your data. And the most important thing, do not blame your supervisor. Let's say sometimes the examiner asks you, why you use Uncover? And then the Uncover is wrong, for example. I don't know, my supervisor insists that I'm using Uncover. I use Uncover, for example, something like that. Because you have to remember, even though your supervisor have a contribution to the process or for your research, but during proposal defense or for the whole thesis, it's your thesis, it's your proposal, it's not your supervisor. So you need to defend it wisely. You need to defend it by yourself. And then one other thing, do not say, let's say the examiner asks you why you only focus on this area, why don't you go to this area, for example, because right now we are focused on online learning, fully online learning. It's not blended learning anymore, something like that. It's not a good example, but you know what I mean is, but try not giving, saying that, oh, that is beyond the scope of my study. Okay, it's not under my scope of study. It's not a good answer. You need to justify in academic manners. And of course, do not be too emotional with your, okay, I just want to go. Okay, how to fail your Viva. Okay, being defensive or dismissive, being paranoia, think the examiner are out to get you, throw question back to the examiners. Okay. During the Viva session, as I did mention earlier, how to fail your Viva session, if every time there are question, you say, okay, I do not know, my supervisor asked me to do so, for example. And then try not to argue. You can defend your thesis, you can defend your proposal, but try not to argue. It's different, argue and defend. Accept criticism, accept errors, accept examiner's personal view. So don't be too defensive and try not to use yes and no answer. That's the most important part. What do you think about this strategy? Either it's good or not. Do you, what the question? I don't know. Okay, don't try to answer all the question with yes and no. Okay, because this is your thesis, you need to justify. If yes, why? If no, why? You need to justify and give your personal opinion or suggestion. Defend your work. Yes, of course, this is proposal defense. You need to defend your work, but you need to know when to stop. Because sometimes when you defend your proposal or your thesis, let's say you give a suggestion, you give your opinion, and then the examiner reject your opinion. And then the examiner tell you to do something else. You try to convince him or her again. Okay? Try to defend. After 2 times, but if the examiner still not accept your idea, then you have to stop. You cannot be too defensive. Okay? Unless the thing the examiner asks you to do is something big, something huge, meaning that if you accept the examiner's suggestion, meaning that you have to change the whole thing. You have to do the data collection again. If that, you have to defend. And how to make sure the examiners know the idea, you have to reject the idea. Try to tell them, okay, Prof, it's a good suggestion. But if I follow your suggestion, meaning that I have to change this area, I have to do the data collection again, something you inform. because sometimes the examiner forgot to relate the suggestion and the what we call the consequences. Then when you inform that, then the chairperson and the examiner will discuss. Oh yeah, if you to change something, this student have to go through the whole process again. It takes maybe 1 year. And then the examiner will think, okay, you don't have to do that. You have to, there are new suggestions. Don't just accept everything. Okay, yes, Prof. Okay, I will try do my best. And then after that, you cry a lot. Okay, with your cats. Nothing, don't know what to do after that. Okay, show this respect. I get so tired. Okay, we don't have enough time, but I just want to share you the results. So for the results for PhD or the master, if you got an A, that's good. Pass with no correction. But you have to remember, if you get an A, you only given maximum 2 weeks. Because A meaning there are no correction, there are no major or minor. It's only maybe typo, maybe a minor. So it takes you less than 2 weeks to complete everything. If the chairperson tell you, okay, your result is B1, meaning that you are given maximum 3 months, but you are allowed to submit, let's say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. Okay, if you can complete everything, but the maximum is 3 months, and only the supervisor will check your thesis. Sometimes the chairperson will ask you, okay, Chin, we give you B1, you are given 3 months to complete the correction. You accept it? Do you anything to object? Oh, I cannot complete everything in three months. Can I get B2? Okay, there's a certain condition. Okay, certain situation that the student asked to change the result from B1 to B2 because they think they cannot commit to complete the correction in 3 months. But you have to remember, 3 months only your supervisor will check your thesis. But B2, the examiner will check your thesis. So you which the result that you prefer. Okay, so 3 months try to complete everything. Okay, it's good to get B1 because only supervisor, and then supervisor know what to do to help you. Okay, if you got B2, 6 months. Okay, but there are certain condition. Sometimes maximum 6 months, but it's not written in the report saying that you cannot submit earlier than 6 months, earlier than 3 months, for example. But sometimes in the report saying that minimum 3 months, maximum 6 months, then you have to fulfill the requirement so that the examiner or the chairperson know that you need at least 3 months to complete everything. Less than 3 months meaning that you are not perform your correction in detail. Okay, sometimes like that. There are C1 and C2, but try to not to get C, because C meaning there are 2 conditions. C1 meaning that you are not be awarded the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, but you are permitted to resubmit the thesis for further examination, meaning that you have to do the correction and you have to submit the thesis, but without revival, meaning that you only submit the thesis, you don't have to do the revival session. Because you have to remember, starting I think last year or last 2 years, for every viva session you have to pay. Okay, 2,500 if I'm not mistaken for PhD, 1,000 for master if I'm not mistaken. And if you have to reviva, you have to pay again. Top up, not 2,500, maybe less than that. You can check with the guideline. I can't remember the exact number. So try to avoid to go for reviva. Okay, so you have C1 without reviva. C2, you have to submit your thesis again. The actual process start again. And then you have to Viva. So minimum 6 months, maximum 12 months. D and E try to avoid that as well. Okay. D meaning that you are not be awarded a degree of Doctor of Philosophy. This is for PhD, but a lower degree. You will get a master. Okay. So you need to do correction. So you got 2 master. Okay. It sometimes happen. E candidate not be awarded a degree of Doctor of Philosophy. This is the detail you can get. I just want to show you the final about the correction. You are given 3 times for correction, meaning that let's say you got a B2, you are given 3 months up to 6 months for correction, and then you submit, and the examiner reject your correction, meaning that you have to do again. So this is the first correction, 6 months, and then you give back the thesis to the faculty give the examiner reject. You need to do the second correction, but after this you only given 3 months for PhD. For master it's less than that. For example, first correction, if I'm not mistaken, 3 months. Second is 1 month, for something like that. Third correction, 1 month. After that, if you still not fulfill all the requirement, you will fail. Even though you pass your Viva, but if you not concentrate on your correction, even though after 3 times, you will fail your thesis. Okay, that's the thing that you need to remember. Viva up to 2 times, meaning that if you have to reviva, there are no third time for reviva. Usually only 2 times. Okay. And after you complete your Viva session, you need to do correction. The faculty will give you an empty form that you need to fill. You have to discuss with your supervisor, but this is an example of table of correction. You need to have this table of correction and submit with your thesis, a new version of your thesis. Previously, in conventional format, you have to type all this. You will get a report from your examiner. You will get report from your chairperson, and then you have to type the question to your form and then answer it. But right now, everything is online, so you just copy and paste. For example, this is comment for chapter 1, too long for statement of the problem, please summarize. You have to respond it here. Statement of the problem has been summarized into 3 pages. Which page? Page 6 to 9, for example. This is the question from internal examiner. This is your answer. This is the question from external examiner. This is your answer, for example. This is example for chapter 2. You need to justify, you need to answer, so that when the examiner want to check back your thesis, it's easy for them to go through. Okay, chapter 2 has been written, and then they read the response. Okay, the student already fulfilled everything. And which page? They will go to your thesis, and it's good to highlight it in your thesis as well. Change color. For example, the old one is black. The new version or the correction or the update version, you change the color to red, so the examiner easy to find what's the new version or the correction. Try to avoid something like this. Where is it? This one. This is the comment from the examiner. You just respond done, 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 done. Okay? Because the examiner don't know where is the response, where is the correction, what you do, what you did for the correction, something like that. So you need to give detail, which pages, what you do, etc. Okay, I will share this PowerPoint slide, and at the end of after the presentation, after the thank you here, after the thank you part, I share with you top of potential Viva question. There's a lot of question here. The most popular general question, chapter 2, chapter 3, so you can go through. Okay. This question is from the Viva session from all around the world. So it's good for you to go through and try to answer it. sometimes the question is there during Viva session, but sometimes the question is not there. But at least you can practice. Yeah? Okay, we don't have time, but let me check the question if I can see any question that is not how to write a good extract is your master publication in Viva. Okay, one more thing about publication. It's good for you to have one slide at the end of your presentation to list all the publication, okay, that you produce during your study for master, for PhD. But if your PhD, just focus during your PhD, because there are one presentation that I involved. There's a lot of papers, but when we check, the student include the paper from the previous study, from the master study. So for PhD, just focus the PhD. Doctor, what is the famous question? Okay, you can check the PowerPoint after Viva. Okay. Is it possible after we pass Viva, submit to the hardbound thesis, but the result change after Senate meeting? I don't think so. But there are something minor change. For example, the abstract and the title, but not the results. Unless there are good reason for that. For example, after everything is complete, then we have a report that the thesis is plagiarized. Okay, something like that. Then the committee or the Senate can overrule, can what we call perform a committee to check it whether it's true or not. Then maybe they can change it. How to answer the Viva question that we really do not know the answer? As I mentioned earlier, it's okay for you to admit. Okay, it's okay for you to admit, but not too much, not the whole the lots of question. I mean, I don't know why you choose this theory. I'm not quite sure. Why you choose this strategy. It's good for you to admit, but not for every single question. Yeah? Because you have to justify. How long? As I did mention earlier, it depends 2 to 4 hours. Okay. It's already 10:50, 11 o'clock. We have another session. Sorry, it takes longer than that as I expected. But maybe I entertain one question, last question. If there are no question from this Padlet, if you want to ask any question. If the students can't answer the question or blank during Viva session, is it possible he or she get the result that asked to re-Viva again? You can discuss with a chairperson if it related with sometime with personal health condition, or sometimes they give you times. For example, if it's a online version, we don't have any problem. But it's a conventional version, okay, of Viva, your external is already there. We have to pay external, okay, more than 1,000, the ticket, the flight, the accommodation, etc. So it's quite troublesome to reset the Viva again. They maybe set you to take break for 1 hour, for example. After 1 hour, start again. If the examiner flight ticket is not, it's a condition that we can wait, okay. Let's say the flight ticket is 8 o'clock in the afternoon or in the night, so we have time. But for WebEx session, you can, the examiner or the chairperson will discuss about it. If there are good, what we call rational justification, if you blank, if you based on personal or health condition. What is the hardest question in the proposal defense? Not the hardest, but the most popular question that most of the students tend to fail to answer is, what is the contribution of your study to the field of your area of study, and also why, the gap of your research. Sometimes you do a research and the gap is very simple. For example, oh, because in my country there were no research on mobile learning yet. For example, that's not a good justification. No research is not a good research gap. Okay, so you have to justify to make sure you know why you perform that research, why you focus on that research question, and what is the contribution. That's the most popular question, and that's the most student fail to answer in detail because you only focus a general answer. Okay, I think you need to take a break because 11 o'clock you have another session. So thank you very much to all. I will pass the PowerPoint after I do some amendment after this, and I will share the link to the our website group, or I'll give to the Dr. Dorafendi to share with you. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you
Okay.
very much, Doctor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So for those who have a Viva or proposal defense session after this, wish all the best, good luck, and try to enjoy the session. Okay? Remember, the examiner want to help you to have a good thesis, a good proposal. So just allow them to do so. Try not to be too defensive. Try to accept criticism and suggestion. Okay, thank you very much. And
Thank you, Doctor.
11 o'clock, there are another session with Dr. Narafendi, and I will copy and paste attendance for those who are still, where's the attendance link? For those who are still not fill the attendance form, so I will copy and paste in the chat room, and feel free to fill the attendance form. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum, and very good day for you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.